Hello and welcome once again. I'd just like to take this opportunity just to clarify one or two things that I mentioned in the last video, who and what God is. Now, if you've seen that, then you'll know I said that religions have lied and are misleading people. But I didn't want people to think that I'm criticizing all mainstream religions. In one sense, I am, because religions are blocked and they are misleading people. But that's only because most people are spiritually asleep. And religions have good intentions to help people. But at the very top, at the very highest, that's when the people are most corrupt and most stuck in their ways and blocked and so unable to see the absolute truth. But now, because we're living in a special time, the truth is being made known, and those who are open to the presence of God are waking up and realizing that we have been deceived for many, many years. And as a result, many religious people are moving away from religion, are moving away from dogma, are moving away from limited thinking, and living a more spiritual life and connecting with the divine. This is nothing new. In Hinduism, there are many famous yogis and mystics who identified with God. For example, in the book Autobiography of a Yogi, Paramahansa Yogananda speaks of Babaji, the ageless guru who is God in physical form. In Buddhism, Buddha transcended the self and he came to an understanding of no self because he united with the divine. In Islam, there was the 10th century Sufi mystic Mansur al-Hallaj, who was tortured and crucified because he identified with God. In all of the mainstream religions, we find a spiritual aspect where people understood that we are part of the divine, we're a part of God. In Christianity, that was Gnosticism. In Islam, that was Sufism. In Hinduism, that was Advaita Vedanta. And in some form of Buddhism, in Mahayana Buddhism, there is the concept of identifying with the divine. And with Judaism, it's Kabbalah. In all of the mainstream religions, there is the notion that we are a spark of the divine. And our purpose here is to reconnect with the divine. But sadly, mainstream religions have removed this and have us wandering around in ignorance, saying we're separate from God, we're miserable, worthless sinners in need of salvation, which is not true. In the next part of this video, I'm going to explain in more detail how not only was this the original message of Jesus, sadly it's been lost, but Jesus did explain to his followers that we are all a part of the divine. So have a look, meditate, pray about it, and see what you think and feel. Thank you. Now, those who are familiar with the Bible would argue this is what Jesus was because he identified with God. And if you remember, the religious leaders, they tried to stone him to death because he identified with God. In John's Gospel, Philip asked Jesus, "Show us God, and that will be enough for us." But Philip doesn't understand, and Jesus says, "Don't you understand? When you're looking at me, you're looking at God, because God is invisible. God is, as I've already mentioned, the creative energy of the universe. God is invisible." But Jesus said, when you're looking at me, you're looking at God, because I am the visible manifestation of the invisible God. And Christians believe this. But what Christians haven't understood, as Jesus said, "You are in me and I am in you," meaning The same power that's animating, guiding, empowering Jesus, the same power is in us. Jesus said, I can do nothing except what the Father tells me. And the power within me is from the Father. I can do nothing without the Father. But what Christians haven't understood is that just as Jesus is the visible form of the invisible God, so are you, and so am I, so is each one of us. We have that same power. Christians believe that the Holy Spirit, God in us, is working through us. But what they haven't understood yet is what we call the Holy Spirit is the human soul, is our essence. That is God living within us. So just as Jesus was a physical, walking, talking manifestation of the invisible God, so too are you. This is what the church doesn't want people to know, because when people realize that they can identify with the divine, they would have no use of the priest, the bishops, the churches. The whole structure would come to an end. This was why the religious leaders opposed Jesus in his time, because if Jesus was teaching people that they are one with God, and Jesus actually said this, he said in the scriptures it says, you are gods. But what happened? The Jewish people, they picked up stones to stone him. It's similar today. Religious leaders do not want you to know that you are one with the divine. The divine lives within you. And as you awaken spiritually, you will discover this for yourself. And the more you discover this, the more you will be drawn to live a life of love. That is why, my friends, when we look at in the media today, there's only hatred and division, because those who are in power want us to be at loggerheads with each other. They want us to live in hate, to live in fear, to live with a negative low vibration, because the lower our vibration, the more we will stay in ignorance. But as we awaken in love and we live in love and we raise our vibration higher, then we connect with the God part of ourselves. We awaken and we remember who we really are and why we came here. As I've said before, my desire is not to convince anyone of anything. My desire is that you can have your own experience. That's why I encourage people as the love philosopher to live in love. Because when we live in love, we awaken. And when we awaken, we connect with the divine. Then we know things, not because somebody has told us, not because we read it on Google. No, we know things because it's our life experience. What I'm sharing with you now is my own personal life experience, and I hope as you practice and live a life of love, that it will also be